Hello! Special Ops. We're revisiting it once again, since co-op is something most people don't talk about. Ah yes, the perfect video topic, what nobody cares about. Well, now that I've gotten to play a couple weeks of the modified challenge modes, I can go over what they're like, maybe give some tips for the veteran missions if you're going for those rewards, although they do change every week, so it'll be more general advice. And more than that, I felt I needed to complete the co-op review trilogy. It's been a very long time. Let's review the history of how co-op has evolved. Or feel free to skip ahead if you're familiar with the story so far. At launch, it would be fair to call Spec Ops a disaster compared to how it was marketed and hyped as infinitely replayable operations in the open world of Verdansk and classic missions like what we're used to for Spec Ops to go through and earn the stars. Well, the latter turned out to be classic mission. There was only one, and it was rough, with no sign of the promised 3-star system or Infinity Ward best times to try to beat. Nope, you just got dumped into a wave survival with very little explanation, hardly any indication of what you were doing, like how long you needed to hold out, and a bug that often prevented you from jumping into the helicopter at the end to win. And if it did let you get in to exfil, there was no evidence that you did it after. No checkbox, no stars. It felt clearly incomplete. There were also the 4 operations though, the larger part of the mode, with create a class and more depth, meant to continue the story of the campaign, but they had several issues and bugs, some bigger than others, and were also shockingly difficult at launch, partly due to people going in unprepared without good setups like a shield and proper perks, but how would people know they had to be prepared for such an ordeal? Because, again, no difficulty options, so you'd expect the co-op mode to be accessible to the average casual player, but that was not the case, with the enemy spam from all directions, laughably, insanely high Juggernaut health, and an unclear, unforgiving checkpointing system. The list goes on. It was not something nearly anybody replayed just for fun. There was nothing to hunt for challenge-wise to give a replay reason. The XP rate was horrible, I assume to err on the safe side in balancing it with multiplayer, so we beat each mission one time for the couple character unlocks, and moved on. It took a while, but over the next month, the bugs were worked on. They did add another classic mission to bring the total to 2. The multiplayer trials and ticket system also became a thing, which seemed to steal the idea of 3 stars and best times, and I think was the more fun version of Spec Ops, having the arcadey feel that I was expecting and enjoy from previous Modern Warfare games. It was around that time I made the 1 month later review that focused on how they had been making the operations gradually easier over time, reducing that crazy Juggernaut health and seemingly stepping down the difficulty level overall. That made them much more accessible, for sure, and there were some elements of fun going through them as a team, and certainly a lot of potential for fun with the sandbox they have, but the mode still lacked that replayability that I always thought a fleshed out challenge system could have provided. A 100%er like what Black Ops 4 had for its 3 game modes, giving a reason to replay in creative ways and complete challenging runs, mixing up what you use to chase an ultimate reward. Well, with Season 1, things gradually got better. They did add those 3 stars and the best times and some basic rewards for the classic missions. I don't think the rewards themselves are what matter. I just like actually being able to see what I did. We also got a couple more operations, and they continued to get easier, Juggernaut health becoming a joke compared to the hundreds of high-caliber rounds they could eat up at launch. And they made the XP rate much better, but not the weapon XP, that still sucks. Then they stopped adding Spec Ops content for a while. The Season 2 and 3 roadmaps pretended it didn't exist. Although they did add a couple mission challenges that had you go play co-op, those were an interesting reason to dive back in, although short-lived. The focus eventually shifted to Warzone when that finally released in late Season 2, and the Warzone launch, in comparison, went great, I gotta say, pretty darn polished, all things considered. And that leads us to today, when a week ago they added the Modified Special Ops, the new attempt to revitalize the not-so-popular mode, and I must say, I think it was done really well. Hence why I'm here talking about it. I'm surprised they didn't hold out and make it a part of Season 4, bundle it in there to make it feel like a bigger game-wide content drop. I guess they don't have room in the spotlight for co-op. Fair enough. But it is nice to see they haven't completely abandoned it. I see these weekly modifier challenges as a pretty significant addition. This is maybe the first update that I think really breathes some life into this game mode to make it worth playing. Granted, we've only seen 2 weeks of it, but the modifiers so far have been interesting. Last week the theme was headshots only and exploding enemies. This week the big ones were the 5-second bleed out time and no munitions on the ground. Interesting stuff, I think, that really does challenge you to play differently. The rewards have been good too. A nice looking 1911 in week 1 and a gold watch for this week. I wonder how long they'll keep up the quality there. Like, I don't know if these veteran versions are curated with manual thought each week and we'll eventually see them cycle around and go through repeats. Maybe there will only be one veteran version of each mission, or maybe these are randomly generated, like they just have a pool of modifiers and it picks a mission to mix it all together. I would guess they're chosen in advance. Either way, obviously there won't be new loot forever, but at least on the gameplay side, I think they finally nailed the difficulty level. For both the veteran missions, I went in with a friend, so we played with 2 randoms, and both times we made it through, no retry needed, awesome. It did feel difficult though, which I like. You needed to take it seriously, but not to the point of it being frustrating, because while the damage you take feels similar to launch, the Juggernaut health has stayed at the reasonable level, like a fifth of what it was back then, and the enemy spam I think is not as obnoxious. You can feel more in control, and we made it through. I won't go super in depth with tips since they do change every week, but I'm sure the modifiers will come back around, and most co-op strategy is the same as always. The shield is your best friend for deflecting back damage at all times, including when reviving, and as a panic option to swap to. Then an overkill 200 round LMG is great since ammo boxes or team stopping power is an auto reload you may never need to manually reload, and then quick fix I find to be an absolute godsend, especially on veteran difficulty for keeping your health up in fights. That's all I'll highlight because I've talked co-op class building many times. The medic class is amazing as always for the quick revives and the revive all, but other classes definitely have some usefulness too. Finally, your munitions can be huge. You don't need to buy stuff. It's always great to just have some ammo and armor and be picking up more of those as you go, but I'd say the jug suits are a great value for only 1,000, especially for any mission which requires standing in the open defending something, which is most of them. The only downside being you can't revive someone without ditching the suit, but that's the same for the controllable airstreaks, and then you can't even defend yourself. I don't think those are worthwhile at all compared to the jug. The sentry is a solid option too though. By the way, if you need points, you do get them just by playing any operations, and there are various ways to farm, but you can actually get more by basically selling streaks. As in, if you pick up a streak that is worth something mid-mission, like a cruise missile, and you hold on to it, after the mission you can swap it for a free box, and you get given the 400 points from the value of that missile for trading it in. I kind of feel like that isn't completely intentional, but a neat little tip there to get some extra points. To take a look at the veteran Crosswind run last week, we didn't do the stealthy version since you kind of need a full team for that. You can look up guides on how that works if you want. Still though, don't start shooting before you cross the field. Thanks guy, makes it hard to get inside for no reason at all. I died later on here when I learned how much damage you take from that collateral damage exploding enemies mod. I thought it was more of a just for fun effect, but it was very deadly. That means it can actually be a good idea to ignore enemies when they're too close to you. Don't shoot them, just try to run past. Well, I used that death as an opportunity to try to get up on the roof, which makes this section of Crosswind very easy. Not only am I pretty safe up here, and anchoring the team to prevent a full wipe, I can help clear enemies, I can pop my ult to revive if everyone goes down, and I can actually help with the objective too. By standing over top of that area, you can see all 4 of us are uploading, because vertical distance doesn't matter for these things. If I walk further away, you'll see it say 3 times. So having someone land on the roof here is great. I started to regret not having a scope for the headshots only modifier. That's something I would change. Usually these iron sights are just fine, but if the headshots one comes up again, I might be going with a red dot or a VLK ACOG. Everything else was pretty standard Crosswind, and I covered Crosswind in great detail in that first mission challenge guide. In this run, I was just relying more on the shield due to the difficulty and keeping distance from enemies before taking them out. Going around Scrapyard is usually easier, cutting back in there at the end, no problem. That veteran run is of course not available anymore, but we'll no doubt see those modifiers and Crosswind return someday. I'd say this week's mission on Brimstone felt harder than Crosswind, but we got very lucky with our random teammates this time. They were very capable and knew what to do, they were on the shield meta, they were even using mics, and they were immediately happy that we knew to be shield gang as well. I guess I'll go into more detail for this one since it was pretty fun and it is the current mission. You still got a couple days if you want to give it a go. The removal of the free munitions everywhere is what made it very interesting. I didn't bring anything special, I just left the crap I had on, but I really should have strategized. I'd say sentry guns and a jug suit would be the best things to buy, but carry at least 1 ammo box, maybe more. Ammo's important. You don't want to have to go scavenging for weapons. So no using the ammo crates for a free reload anymore. You gotta save it for when you really need it. And be conserving that ammo with headshots and tap shooting. One consideration I had after starting was maybe I should have actually ditched overkill and gone shield sidearm. Since headshots are so powerful in co-op, it wouldn't be that bad. And that way I could run hardline to get free munitions for multi-kills to support the team with armor and ammo crates the whole time. I might have tried that if we failed, but it went alright with the normal setup. The hardest Brimstone objective has got to be the first comm array out in the open here. Good thing these lads came prepared with 2 sentry guns to place out here as we all turtled up on the objective with some armor and smoke spam, and we were triple medic, so helping each other up was not too bad. With the 5-second bleed out time mod, you have to revive immediately, so don't stray too far away, and there's no time to clear out enemies first, so the easy medic revive was even more useful, but with no munitions on the ground, that made our one armor player's ability more useful than normal too. Same could be said for the team stopping power giving a full mag. Anyway, I tried to airstrike the building and failed horribly. Big comm array hitbox apparently, killed myself with that, but all good, we got through that, and I think it's all downhill from that crazy objective. The other ones have better cover. Thankfully there was a helpful mod where enemies dropped grenades that resupply your gear, so we could keep up the smokes, go prone with shields, easy peasy. The third one is more hectic. Calling in a jug could be good here, but really more of the same, jumping on the objective whenever I had full health, watching the doors, and running off to heal or reload. After that, you get a crate drop, giving you your only free munitions. This can drop a couple jug suits, which will be very handy for the next section, where you have to fight some jugs to claim the terminal keys. One of our teammates did just that with his jug suit, as we escorted him around to collect the keys. Taking a jug's attention with a shield out is a great team strat. Then you go back, you call in the train, fight your way back to the train. I mentioned how good Quick Fix was before. It is absolutely my co-op blue perk of choice ever since the buff it got. It was keeping me alive the whole time with that quick regen in the middle of fights. You can call in a free chopper here, but that is risky. I was only able to do it with my friend watching my back, while our other 2 planted the C4. A couple revive ultimates got popped here when we got a bit spread out, but we regrouped after everything got planted, dropped our last ammo crate, which we all badly needed.
Nice, fuck yeah, man. Ammo at the best time. Boys are sick.
And used the second jug suit saved from the crate earlier. Here's an excellent time for one of those.
Nice, and the jugs at the end. Oh man, this is great.
Well,
this is fucking great.
Great indeed, because we needed to defend the DZ here for 2 minutes, aka camp in this building and kill everything you can. Eventually, a crate will drop and open up to give you a place to hook up. The gunfire seems to die down a little to allow you to exfil, but some smoke never hurts, so you can hook up and get out of there.
Yeah, we're on. Fuck
Yep,
yeah,
I'm on,
boys.
dude.
Veteran.
With a pretty neat little cutscene, I gotta say. Very cool.
Fuck yeah.
GG.
Yeah, that was awesome.
You gotta make this be so easy.
Thanks, boys.
So that's a sample of the veteran missions. A lot of fun. They felt good. Like I said, hard enough to take seriously, but not so hard that they get frustrating. Although very teammate dependent for sure. We got very lucky that time. With a clueless team, I could imagine Brimstone getting rough. But with the normal missions pretty far on the easy side now, it's great that you can choose to take on something a bit more challenging. I know that full-on difficulty options like recruit, regular, hardened couldn't be a thing for the operations, because then you need separate queues for every difficulty of every mission, and I doubt there are enough players in co-op to do that. Not that it would even be a great thing. Same reason why they have to rotate out the veteran challenge each week. Whenever I was talking about having difficulty options, that was always more for the private match classic missions, to be like the Spec Ops of older games. Oh well, I like the update. This is a very cool way to add an optional challenge along with unique restrictions instead of just dialing up the damage you take. All the positive stuff aside, I still can't call it very replayable because it's more of a fun weekly check-in. Once you run it one time, you're pretty done for the week. You've earned the main reward. Not that it always has to be all about the reward, but I really don't see the point in running it again after you've conquered it the first time. Something like a gunfight tournament, I might want to play again, even after getting the prize, because it's a fun format. But this mission will be pretty much the same every time. And it isn't like some kind of grindy MMO where you might want to run it multiple times for more materials, or a display for how many times you've beaten it. Similar thing to the co-op mission challenges. You do them and you're done. At least the modifiers are an actual interesting gameplay addition, as well as something new to hunt for each week. I guess you do earn those points from playing any special ops that you can spend on jug suits to make the next week easier, so if you're low on points, that's something to farm a little bit, but not something you need a ton of. Maybe if I could spend 1,000,000 points to buy some cool permanent unlocks, like even a character skill tree gameplay-wise, or some vehicle skins cosmetic-wise, that would make it an interesting currency, because I already have all the streaks I need. I always go back to that idea of wanting to earn cash that I get to keep. In stuff like Warzone too, keep what you get. It would make daily challenges interesting too. Anyway, that's fine though, I'm past the point of wanting a big grind in Spec Ops. I'm happy with a weekly thing to check out. There are those daily challenges as well, I guess I haven't mentioned those yet. I know those were added in Season 3, along with a refresh of daily challenges in general, like the multiplayer ones were made easier, more about kills with certain weapons and attachments, which I think was a good change, but the dailies in general I think are just really poorly organized. I can't bring myself to care at all. The rewards themselves are almost never anything really interesting, but that isn't the main problem for me. It's really not about the loot, it's about the ability to complete them all, and see how much I've done. If there were a tab where I could see all the dailies I've done, that would be kind of fun for me, to log on and get them done when I have time. But the biggest problem of all is that you get duplicate challenges, if you hadn't noticed. The same challenge can often come back up and tell you you're getting a new reward, when really it's something you already did and already have. And there's no way to know unless you check by scrolling through your mess of emblems alphabetically. And that is what makes them not fun to do at all. If I were checking them off one by one, and you always got a new one, and you could actually get to a point where you had them all done, I would actually be engaged by that. But the way they are, they're completely uninteresting. The fact that you get dupes makes it seem like a very lazy afterthought. Not a big deal, it just means they're not something I care about. Alright, going off into the weeds now, I just wanted to update the record on Spec Ops. The mode launched in such a disappointing state, and my expectations were not even that high. Like looking at Modern Warfare 2 Spec Ops, even taking all the nostalgia out of the equation, it is pretty fun, even though it's fairly short, and once you beat it, it's done, and it's mostly reused areas and mechanics from the campaign. Like nothing is simple in game development, but I doubt it took a ton to put that together using stuff they already had. Despite that, it was fun, and that's all that matters. 23 missions you could play alone or co-op if you wanted to. The difficulty made sense. It was not only selectable, but it ramped up as you went deeper. It had a light, arcadey feel that provided a good challenge to overcome, and even going for better times in the pit I find more replayable than this Spec Ops. Like the trials are more replayable in the exact same way. Just to prove it isn't nostalgia speaking here, the trials are fun. They feel like old Spec Ops, except on the shorter side, and they actually made some unique gun courses and areas just for that little side mode. Cool stuff. Except with trials, you're literally not allowed to replay them as much as you want. Pretty funny. I feel like maybe once you get 3 stars with a ticket, or get 3 stars on a whole season of them, you should then be allowed to replay them infinitely, but for no XP obviously. Or you could just keep earning tickets for leveling after 155. I've always said that, cause what's gonna happen when there are no more seasons, and you use your last ticket? No more trials? Oh well, Spec Ops has gotten a lot better, no doubt about that. There's a decent mission selection now, there's intel you can find in the operations too, I forgot about that. Neat little side objective, collect some lore. The occasional mission challenge is a neat way to add a little grind, and these new modifiers I think are a really well executed way to add some difficulty. If you completely brushed off the modifier update as not worth trying, well maybe it is, especially if you have a group to do it with. Well, I'll see you all for Season 4 very shortly. I know that's something I haven't talked about at all. The guns, the price teasers. I guess when everyone is talking about a little bit of news, I kinda don't bother, cause I don't have anything to add. That confidential teaser thing a while back was pretty funny though. I guess the only comment I have is how hilarious the voice acting was.
One man? Is this a problem?
Yes, a big one.
Yes, a big one. They were supposed to be making Price sound like a badass with this epic teaser, and it just sounded goddamn ridiculous. One man? Is this a problem?
I have only one picture of this man, but the quality is poor.
Who is he?
An old friend.
Am I the only one who thought that whole conversation was the most ham-handed thing? Nobody talks like that. It sounded oddly amateur. I don't know. Maybe it's the lack of background music, but it sounded like people doing goofy accents and trying too hard to sound suspenseful. Okay, whatever. Season 4 soon. Should be a big one. Enjoy some BR duos until then. There's some news people actually care about. See you then. Thanks for watching, and I love you.